The other vehicle pulls up alongside, and the drive.
Biggie was shot multiple times while sitting in the front passenger side of this SUV.
Somebody shooting at you, your first reaction is not to get a description of them, but to...
LAPD knew exactly what was going on all the way.
The cat is finally out of the bag. Following years of legal battles and strife for her son's murder, the notorious B.I.G.'s mom has now revealed that the reason the case was closed is because the LAPD had its own plans from the beginning. Yup, that's right, the same people that took oaths to protect and serve have apparently turned their backs on the people. But in this case, they covered up a rather public crime. So now, the question is, what really went down with the rapper? And how exactly has the LAPD been able to get away with such a crime? Let's get into it. In 2002, members of Mr. Wallace's family, including his mother Voletta Wallace and his widow Faith Evans, filed a lawsuit accusing the Los Angeles Police Department of concealing police involvement in the murder. Allegations of unfair conduct were made by both parties, and a mistrial was declared by Judge Cooper. The police had intentionally withheld evidence. She later ordered the city to pay the estate $1.1 million in legal fees. But what really proved that there had been foul play within the force was the amended second lawsuit against the LAPD worth $500 million. Even Ice Cube has the same views.
Some kind of way seems a little
JFK.
governmental to me.
Fans also seem to agree with Miss Evans. Hashtag who shot Biggie and Tupac. I've also learned the LAPD has and still is covering up the Biggie's murder because LAPD officers were involved. Another tweeted, hashtag Unsolved USA is immediately getting to the hidden accusations of Biggie murders. The LAPD were involved and had affiliated themselves. I knew it. Broomfield, the investigative journalist who made the 2002 documentary on Biggie and Tupac, stated that several aspects of the murders appeared like the police had been involved rather than a random gangland shooting. I think that does involve members of the police force. It's a very significant murder. It was an incredibly neatly executed murder, which didn't have any of the signs of a gang killing, which is typically spraying a car with bullets. Furthermore, Broomfield stated that he produced a follow-up documentary after Biggie and Tupac because he was infuriated by the portrayal of the incorrect suspect, which has now been believed by half of the world. He felt obligated to disclose the correct suspect as a debt to Miss Wallace and his former colleague Russell Poole. Now you had half of America believing in something that was clearly not true. That was my motivation. I was fairly annoyed by what had happened, and I just felt Russell deserved something better, and so did Voletta, and so did the Biggie estate. They deserve some kind of closure. Detective Greg Kading shares this sentiment and holds Voletta Wallace in high regard.
I love Voletta Wallace. I from the very beginning, me and my partner, that was our sole motivation, was to give her the answers.
Although she continues to suffer every day from the loss of her only son, she firmly believes that the LAPD mishandled her son's case. I have a very good idea who murdered Christopher, and I genuinely believe that the LAPD know exactly who did too. They've done their investigation, but they just refuse to move forward. I don't know why they haven't arrested who was involved. It seems to me that it's one giant conspiracy, and someone is definitely being protected somewhere down the line. According to Detective Greg Kading, when Voletta Wallace withdrew her case against the LAPD, it appeared that the organization had successfully covered their tracks and were confident in their ability to win the case.
And the LAPD and the city of Los Angeles and their attorneys were like, ain't no way. We're not settling for settling. Now for an agency to do that, they have to be extremely confident.
However, the documentary played a crucial role in the case's development, prompting FBI members to investigate the potential involvement of officers in the murder case. Despite legal limitations, officers David Mack and Rafael Perez, as well as former Death Row producer and Crips gang bodyguard C-Style, were suspected of involvement. I saw David Mack. I hung around with Rafael Perez. They were not different to us, except they had badges, we didn't. An anonymous source reported that both accused officers were present near the Peterson Automotive Museum in L on the night of Biggie's drive-by shooting. The documentary also includes emotional interviews and graphic pictures, exposing Death Row Records' descent into a debauched hub for gang members. Unseen pictures of Tupac and night partying with naked women in labeled offices are also revealed. Broomfield suggests that both the murders of Tupac and Biggie are related and are essentially collateral damage in the gang wars.
Both of whom, in a sense, paid for their art by both being killed. They got caught up in a gang war, really, that had nothing to do with either of them.
During an interview, the director of the documentary revealed to the Daily Mail that there were pieces of undeniable evidence that suggested manipulation in favor of the accused LAPD officers. Particularly in the case of Biggie Smalls, there are strong indications that LAPD police officers were involved in that hit. The killing was orchestrated and the hit was put out by Suge Knight. At the time, he was in prison, but he placed the hit. He did that as a revenge killing for Tupac being killed. Later in the interview, he also went on to state that the officers involved had been getting paid by death row, so the outcome is the same even if the organization pleads not guilty.
I think the connection between Suge Knight and the rogue police officers who are working off duty for death row is undoubtedly completely established.
The detective in the case, Kading, has also revealed that his investigation gave similar results.
Time that Biggie Smalls was killed, Suge Knight was in the county jail. So in order for him to communicate with somebody on the street, he had to go through an intermediary, which was this female who was visiting him in jail.
Detective Kading stated that the alleged hitman Poochie was met by a female third party who conducted all transactions on Suge's behalf.
Kading says the woman would visit Knight pretending to be a legal assistant.
That allows her to go in, sit down with Suge, and have unmonitored visits. Deputies can't overlisten on the phone, they can't stand there and overhear.
Despite the fact that the female third party exchanged information for her own safety, it seems that every force in the universe was working to cover up the murder. Organizational corruption extended beyond labeled officers, with deep involvement from the FBI. According to Philip Carson, a former head of the FBI's Los Angeles field office, he had enough evidence 15 years ago to file charges against 2 crooked LAPD officers over the killing of Biggie Smalls. But unsurprisingly, his bosses at the time shut down his investigation due to pressure from the LAPD. After retiring as a federal agent, he did not accept his fate and remained active. He took almost 3,000 pages of case documents with him and shared his story with filmmakers who were producing an upcoming movie about the case called City of Lies, starring Johnny Depp. Carson informed one of the movie's producers, Don Sikorsky, that his documents had the potential to shake the foundations of law enforcement in LA, as heard in a recording shared with Sun Online. LAPD, all the way to the very effing top, knew exactly what was going on. They briefed on certain stuff. I met with them, and for them to say anything different, I could prove to you not only how they knew, but how they obstructed this case and how they completely derailed it. It's hard for me to even explain how amazing it is what they did. Furthermore, Carson believes that senior members of the LAPD conspired with his bosses at the FBI and prosecutors to keep his evidence concealed. The top officials aimed to prevent the city from going bankrupt after Valletta, Biggie's mother, filed a $500,000 lawsuit over her son's death and did not want Carson to testify. Randall Sullivan, the author of the book that includes Carson's perspective on the case, states the LAPD was at risk of ceasing to exist. The financial hit was going to be so enormous. There were already preliminary plans for either the sheriff's department or the federal government to take over the LAPD because the hit and the legal consequences were going to be enormous. The author predicts that the case may be reopened with additional criminal charges. Harry Sanders, an attorney for the rapper's family, stated that they found Carson's shocking allegations to be credible and were considering whether to take legal action. We are digesting this stuff. Obviously, it's disturbing that the behind-the-scene action was so intense and was designed to avoid a murder being prosecuted. Phil was an honest cop from all I knew. Straight shooter. I'd believe whatever he says about this. He has no reason to lie. Despite the similarity between Phil's account and Detective Kading's, a new name has emerged in Carson's findings. The former FBI agent's written request states, Amir Muhammad, aka Harry Billups, the godparent to LAPD officer David Mack's 2 children, has been identified by several sources as the trigger man. Mack is a registered owner of a 1995 black SS Impala with chrome wheels, the exact description given as being driven by Wallace's shooter. During an interview with All Hip Hop, the ex-agent disclosed that the LAPD had concealed certain details and prevented them from taking photographs of the pictures in their files.
We had that in their file, and then there were certain things that were made part of the
But you saw the actual footage or the actual picture of Amir Muhammad, lurking around the Peterson.
Carson also stated that Biggie wasn't even the original target, but Sean Puffy Combs, who was in the vehicle ahead of Biggie's SUV on the night of the murder, was the one. He also revealed this information with Combs and said that the rapper was pretty freaked out to learn that the intended hit was on his head. That's it for today, folks. Until next time, goodbye.